In this video I want to speak about velocity because it's just so much more than playing loud or soft notes. If you understand how it works, you can make your sounds way more expressive, way more surprising, and also way more fun. So for example, you can turn this rather static drum beat into something more moving. Or you can turn this one-note synth sequence into something more dynamic and surprising. My name is Janis, by the way, and let's jump right into it. Let's start with drums. So here I have a drum clip where all the parts have the same velocity throughout the whole clip. So you see the snare drum is actually softer because it's some sort of ghost note, but everything else is like at 100. And let's look at the hi-hat part, because this is like a great example on how you can use velocity for making everything just a little more dynamic, so it doesn't sound so static. Let's open up the drum rack and also open up some MIDI effect called velocity, because a great thing you can do for the hi-hat, for example, is to randomize the velocity. I mean, still, we will have the same sound just being softer and louder, but it's the first step. So the MIDI effect velocity and increasing the random value is like a great first idea you can apply to a hi-hat. And this needs to be in front of the sample, because if you put it in front of the drum rack, you will actually randomize all notes, which can sound fun as well, but probably a bit messy. So I prefer to do it per sample, so it needs to be here. Still, it's the static hi-hat sound. We simply play it louder or softer, but it always sounds the same, which is why we need another cool effect called expression control. And it has to come after the velocity effect because it picks up the velocity. And now we can apply the velocity to almost any parameter, which is super, super cool. So the first tab is already on velocity, and we can map it to the decay, which means louder stroke, longer decay, softer stroke, softer decay. And the sustain needs to be at 0 for doing this, and let's check it out. It's actually pretty awesome. Let's open up another tab and apply it to, for example, the attack. Now, what happens here is that the attack is actually longer the louder we play, so it's going to sound a bit awkward, I guess. Although it's also kind of interesting, depending on what you want, but it's great that you can also put the output range to minus, which means if we put the attack here, it will actually get shorter the louder the stroke is going to be played. So we get a lot of movement through the hi-hat because it never sounds exactly the same, and it's a bit randomized based on the velocity, which is like a super cool way of working. And once you have expression control, you can experiment, because you can apply it or actually modulate almost anything. You could also mess with the tuning. So let's also choose another tab, velocity, and map it to transpose. This will probably sound a bit funny. Oh, here it gets interesting. You also have a filter here, so you could also modulate this one, but actually let's check out the filter for another sound, because we have those snare drum ghost notes. Actually, it should be this part, I think. Yeah. Or we can try the same. Let's again use velocity first and randomize the ghost notes. And also use expression control. And it already has a macro for the filter, so let's actually apply the velocity to the low pass filter, bring it down. So only for loud strokes the filter is going to open up, and otherwise we have the kind of filtered sound. Adding some more surprising elements to the groove as well. You can always define the range in which you want to modulate stuff. I mean, this is like some more extreme example now, but at the same time, I like the choky vibes that we get. And again, be creative and try stuff. So what happens if we modulate the tone? Could be a funny effect too. It sounds actually really cool. And of course, you don't have to randomize it. You could also simply define different types of velocities for the notes yourself. So you're completely free to do whatever. This is just some example. Let's see how this sounds like with those few snares being a bit louder. Also a more dynamic sound. By the way, in case you enjoy this video and also feel like supporting the channel, you can quickly hit the like button and be also warmly invited to subscribe, because I regularly share videos about music production. And if you really like the video, you're also warmly invited to hype the video, because this really helps to share it with more people. However, let's check another type of sound, because here I have a synth sequence that is basically like a one-note sequence that always sounds the same, although it sounds cool. And for understanding what you can do with velocity, let's randomize it again, because I'm somehow a big fan of randomizations. But again, you can change the individual parts of the clip. Lots of different ways here. And let's open up the synth plugin. So I'm using some third-party plugin now to just explain the process behind it, because often inside the plugins you have some modulation section. And here, for example, you have to click the advanced tab. Often they hide it because they only give you like the more simple menu first. And then you can possibly say, okay, I want to apply like something to the mod wheel, for example, but also you often have velocity. And here you can choose all the parameters. So you can, for example, say, okay, I want to apply the velocity to the decay. And let's again make the decay short and see what happens if we increase the modulation amount. We get different types of decays, but not always on the same position. Same would work actually for the filter cutoff. Or like the intensity of the filter cutoff. Now, with any type of hardware synth or also emulations of hardware synthesizers, you're usually limited to the plugin. So here you have one velocity tab, but what if you want to apply the velocity to something else? And there's a great workaround in Ableton, because for any of those third-party plugins, you can click Configure and then click on the parameters that you would like to modulate. So let's actually bring in the decay. It will appear here, and the envelope depth, and maybe also the cutoff frequency. We could also use resonance. Maybe this is cool for now. And we don't even need the synth anymore, and can again use expression control for modulating all this stuff. So we have the velocity tab and can apply it to the decay. But we can also apply the velocity, or use the velocity for controlling the cutoff intensity, fine-tuned. And also it's important to go back to the plugin and bring those to a value which is like the lowest possible that you want to have. So maybe we have to bring them down a little, so we have more range where we can go. And again, you can have some fun. Why not modulating the resonance? And to get some fun randomized sequences that can create a lot of energy together with some ongoing drum part, for example, because if everything is predictable, it gets boring. But if you have like this one element that has this unpredictable stuff, it gets more interesting. And you don't have to stick to only the plugin settings. This is the last thing I actually want to share with you. You can also, for example, use effects like a delay. Let's use a delay. It can be like the most basic setting. And use the velocity for controlling the amount. So we bring this to 0, and you can also play with the curves. So if you use this type of curve, for a long time you will actually get almost no trigger for the delay, but if you get the louder notes, it will actually trigger the delay, and then you can fine-tune it, and only for the moments where the synth really opens up, you actually get the delay sound. Let's fine-tune this. Here you get more delay. It's a great tool for controlling the amount of some effect and making it respond more to what you actually play. And it's also super, super cool if you actually play stuff yourself and can control the amount of some effect this way. And honestly, this is just a glimpse of what's possible, but I hope this video inspires you a little to play around with velocity, either for playing stuff yourself or also for just programming MIDI clips. And if you want to learn more about expression control, I'll link you a video here where I show you how you can use it for creating some more analog sounding synth sounds. And here's another one about using MIDI effects for expressive drumming, because I'm a drummer, and even if you're not a drummer, you will learn a lot about MIDI effects in this video. Apart from that, I wish you lots of inspiration with whatever it is that you create, and really hope to see you soon in this channel. Bye.